Thank you.
Have a great day, boss. All right. Mr. Shirky, I know that on the next person on was the Corps, but could you know Lieutenant Kelly is on a call, so.
Mr. Chairman, can I introduce Alan?
Hey, ladies and gentlemen, we have Mr. Drew Bartlett here this morning.
How are you?
Drew, thank you so much for being with us this morning. I can only imagine what your day-to-day call schedule is like, along with meetings and other things that you have to go to. And I want to tell you, as someone that's born and raised around here, you've done nothing short of an amazing job in the frying pan that you have to jump in and out of daily. And to see what you guys are doing and the volume of projects, not only Drew, that y'all are bringing into completion, but that what you're letting out there. And I know people don't like it when I say this, but y'all are the definition of an economic animal. And, you know, when I wake up, when I'm fortunate enough to sleep in Hendry County and wake up and go to my office, you know, I live about, as a crow flies, about 300 yards down the road from the South Florida Water Management District headquarters right there in the city of Clewiston. And the people that I grew up with, the people that I've watched as I've grown up, that come in and out of there, that is a huge interest to Hendry County. I see the same thing of those people that roll in from Glades, and then when I'm up in Okeechobee County, so often it's the same thing that I see up there, and it's everywhere. So thank you for what y'all do, and I appreciate the axe that y'all grind every day.
Well, thank you so much, Commissioner, and I appreciate you recognizing how hard a job I might have. In 2020, you guys have had the hard job, you know, and we have seen that, and I really wanted to take this opportunity as a water management district to thank all of you county commissioners for really looking at the pandemic, figuring out how to manage and live in the pandemic, and making the hard decisions based on lots of public comment for the pandemic. As a water management district, we look to the counties to try to help guide us on those kind of things, and you guys have done that. And it has been very challenging for you, and I really, really wanted to express our appreciation as a district for y'all's service during this. When the pandemic really arrived on our doorstep, we had to make all of our transition changes. And after we did that in a 2-week period, we said, let's get back to work. Let's make sure we're getting the job done and focusing on the mission. And I just want to tell you that, as you said, Mr. Commissioner, we are still knocking it out of the park as an agency. We've doubled our efforts in the science realm by deploying monitoring on Lake Okeechobee and the northern watersheds. We've exceeded our goals on land management by doubling our Python program. We've exceeded our burn goals, including on Lake Okeechobee. And in fact, we did launch an herbicide reduction strategy this year. Now, I'll tell you, controlling exotics is job one, and so we're not going to let those get out of control, because then you're using herbicide, right? So keep it under control, but using innovative technology to use less herbicide over time, and we got a 20% reduction goal set for ourselves in a 5-year period. But we all know we live in a system where the infrastructure is imperfect and causing us to make hard decisions and debate hard decisions daily. And our way out of it is construction. We're working on storage north, south, east, and west of Lake Okeechobee. We're working on uncorking Tamiami Trail so we can send it south into the park. We had an event last week where we celebrated that progress. So Alan's going to give you the details. Let me tell you, his bureau works hard. They have not missed a beat, and they are pumping out contracts to make sure that we, get the system right in South Florida. So just wanted to appreciate your efforts and turn it over to the guy who really gets the job done in the South Florida Water Management District.
Thank you, Mr. Bartlett.
Thanks, Drew. Good morning, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. Thanks for the chance to present.
I could be wrong, but I'm noticing a little bit of hardware that I didn't see in the previous.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you.
Congratulations on that, Chief.
Thanks, I appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
Again, thanks for the chance to present. I'll be talking through some of the current water conditions briefly, and then jumping into some of those projects that Drew mentioned. If I can figure out how to work this. There we go. Just talking about where we stand in terms of rainfall. The last 4 months have been pretty average. You can see there June through September, pretty close where, the red reflects a deficit, blue reflects a surplus. We got a lot of rain in May, and then had 4 months that were pretty average, but when the numbers come in October, obviously that October number is going to go through the roof, and it's going to be big into the blue. As you guys already mentioned, we got a ton of rainfall this month. And so these maps represent everything that we saw through September, and we were slightly above average through September in terms of wet season rainfall. But again, when the numbers come in October, all of those numbers are going to go up considerably. And so lake level, around the beginning of October, we sat at right about 16. The lake continued to rise, as you are aware, got as high as just shy of 16.4, and then discharges started, and the lake is now receding. So it's on its way down. It's down around 16.1, I believe. There is a website update that you can go to now at sfwmd.gov that shows all of the inflows to the lake, all of the outflows with directions, how much is going east, how much is going west, how much is going south, evapotranspiration numbers, so you can get the net water budget of the lake anytime you want to see it, and that's updated daily. And so that's kind of the conditions that we find ourselves in today. Moving on into the projects, some good news. C-44 reservoir and STA, we're down to our final 2 contracts. If I can get a laser pointer going here, we've got the STA, 6,400 acre STA, and then the main reservoir. The last 2 contracts of the project are underway, and we're getting pretty close to completion on the STA. So this is some of the work that Bergeron has been out there doing. They've got the distribution canal, a lot of the STA embankments, the roadways, control structures, et cetera, finished. And so this is kind of looking at some of that finished product. This is one of the canals that runs straight north and south through the facility. This is the pump station, the temporary pump station that we installed that allows us to draw water directly from the C-44. So this body of water here connects by gravity to the C-44 canal. And once we get the STA up and running, we can run, well, we've already run these pumps to hydrate some of the STA cells as they've finished. And so while the Corps is working on the reservoir, we can take advantage and get early benefits, early grow-in of vegetation in the STA by way of these pumps. So these pumps take water from the C-44 and put it into cell 2, which can feed the rest of the STA cells from there. And so the results of some of that are shown in this picture. You can see cell 2 was hydrated back in November, and you can see there's a decent amount of vegetation grow-in already that's occurred. And then subsequent to cell 2, cell 3 came online, and cell 4. And you can see we've got them watered, and grow-in is occurring. We've also got cell 5 done. So right now, the only one that remains is cell 6. Once that's done, we will have met substantial completion for the project, and we can operate the entire STA facility as a whole. Because of those October rains, we were expecting substantial completion to hit right around now. But because of those heavy October rains that you all talked about and that I mentioned earlier, that's pushed some of that work out. So now current projection is that we'll be able to finish cell 6 and hydrate it mid-December. Moving over to the other coast, to the C-43 reservoir. Very large project. We started back in November of 2015, and it will ultimately store 170,000 acre feet of water on a 10,000 acre footprint, storing water at an average depth of about 19 to 20 feet. And so this is just a refresher showing the key components of that facility. It's a 2-cell reservoir, numerous gravity control structures, a main inflow pump station located here that will draw the water from the C-43 canal into the facility, and then an irrigation pump station that will allow water to continue around the southern end and feed the farms over to the east. So there's two major contracts going on right now. One is the inflow pump station that I just mentioned. A lot of progress out there so far on this one. The pump gallery walls have been poured, so you'll see a lot of concrete work in the subsequent photos. The 84-inch discharge pipes within the interior of the station have been constructed. You'll see a partial communications tower. We've got 220 feet of the 300 installed. And then you'll see the improvements to the Townsend Canal that allows us to draw water from C-43 to the pump station. A lot of that work is also in. And just as a refresher, this was a $60 million contract awarded back in March of 2018, and an appreciation of the scale. Townsend Canal improvements, like I mentioned, we've got the canal widened. We've got TRM and planting done to stabilize the banks, and we've got armoring that was installed under the bridge to protect that area. This is just so we could take additional amounts of water beyond what the original canal cross-section was designed for out of the C-43 and put it into this facility for storage. Getting into the large contract, the embankment contract. So there's 19 miles of dam embankment. I'm just going to pick off some of the highlights from this, and 15 miles of perimeter canal. The embankment is highly engineered. It's got a cutoff wall. It's got a drainage blanket associated with it, all for the purposes of dam safety, so that when you store that 20 feet of water on average, you don't you minimize the concern with breaches. Obviously, that's important. Again, this is a $524 million contract. So I mentioned there's a cutoff wall that goes down through the center of the embankment. This is the mixing plant to produce that material such that it can be installed as work progresses. And this is kind of the base of the embankment, if you will. So around the entire outside of the reservoir is that collection canal that I talked about, or that seepage canal, and that's shown here. And then there's a toe, and then the entire embankment is going to be built up, if you can picture in your mind, a big embankment going just like this, and then the reservoir water would be stored over here. So this is the prep work that's being done in anticipation of building up those lifts of embankment. So you've got this clean sand that's being installed here for the drainage blanket, and then you've got the prep here for the soil bentonite cutoff wall. And so you can see the differences in material that are being installed there. And then, as I said, this embankment will be built up from there. So this is just kind of laying the foundation work for it, going all the way around those miles of perimeter that I mentioned. And then, so this is just progress photos of that perimeter canal excavation that were shown in that previous picture. And then some of the control structures are underway. There's numerous gravity control structures that stage water from high to low as you work around the perimeter of the facility. And so obviously that work has started in earnest as well. Moving on to some storage north of the lake. Our ASR program, informed by the science plan, is moving forward. And so right now, as part of that science plan, we're doing a lot of kind of exploratory work and research work on what's down there in terms of ASR. So as part of phase one, we're completing an evaluation and hydrogeologic assessment at C38S or C38 South and North, and then L63, C59, and L63 South We're drilling 2,000 feet down in those areas. We're also doing exploratory wells of the upper Floridan aquifer, and we're getting some of the existing facilities that were out there back up and running. The existing L63N and the Kissimmee River ASR pilot were out there, were built several years ago, and so we're doing some work to see what it's going to take to get those back up and running. And then this is just a photo of a typical ASR facility. Obviously, the benefit, or one of the benefits of ASR is it takes up a pretty small footprint. That whole site there is only about 4 acres. And then moving on down to the south, we recently had a groundbreaking and a ribbon cutting for a couple of different features of SEP South. All of these projects work towards the initiative of getting water out of WCA 3 and down into Everglades National Park. And so the Corps held a groundbreaking on their culvert project, which will take additional water from WCA 3 and allow it to move down to the S333N structure. And then eventually that water makes its way down into the park. And so at S333N, before there was just this one gated structure here, and all of this levee was located here, such that you only had one route for the water to go. So for all this water coming out of WCA 3, it had to go through this single channel. We've since doubled the size of that, allowing us to double the amount of water we can send south to the park. And so this levee that was here has now been moved over, this channel excavated out, and this brand new control structure constructed so that we double the amount of water that comes out of this area and then moves east and eventually south to the park. And then also south of the lake, we've got our Bowles Canal related improvements, which is going to allow us to send additional water to A1 FEB. And we've got segments 1, 2, and 3, and Jet Farms Bridge and Duda Road are all complete. Those have all been constructed. The canal has been widened and deepened in those areas. We're currently working segment 4, shown in yellow, and then we've got design underway on segment 5 and then these 3 bridges. So with all of these improvements, the entire reach of L16 between the Hillsborough and North New River will be finished. And so this is just a typical section looking at the improved canal. Once it's been deepened and widened, before we started out here, this canal was so shallow that birds were able to walk across it. And then also off to the side of the canal, we have to replace the farm ditches and farm roads that were out there in order for those operations to continue once the project is done. And so this is just a shot of that work going on in conjunction with the work on the main channel. Last but not least, the EAA Reservoir and Stormwater Treatment Area project is underway. This is a project to store 240,000 acre-feet of water in the reservoir and provide a new stormwater treatment area totaling 6,500 acres. And so the Corps has the lead on the reservoir and some of its associated features, and South Florida Water Management District has launched out on getting the STA piece of it done. So our focus is here on the STA, located on the west side of the property of the A2, and then the Corps has the reservoir contract. And so let me back up one slide. So as part of the early work that we're doing on the STA, we need to get a canal constructed that will run from the Miami over to And so we've got to blast that out, and so this is kind of what that looks like. So as that material is blasted out, then excavators can come in and they're able
You have to go
to...
back and do that again.
Absolutely, that's kind of fun, huh? Whoops. Yeah, so it's obviously a highly coordinated setup. The guys that specialize in that blasting do a great job, and you can see it goes right down the line in a timed, progressive kind of approach. They're not just out there willy-nilly blasting holes. So it's pretty neat. And then once they're done, the excavators then can come in, dig out that material, and move it to where it needs to go, and then you've got eventually an inflow canal. As I said, Water Management District has taken the lead on this STA area, including clearing, grubbing, and muck removal contract of that canal footprint. That's already done. That canal, that vegetation removal contract is complete. Inflow-outflow canal construction is underway, and next month we'll be completing the stormwater treatment area design and putting that out to bid. So you'll see that next month. That's for the entire embankment, control structures, and associated levees within the STA. We also have to do some improvements to the Miami and North New River canals in order to get that additional water down to these facilities. And so we're doing a bunch of surveying and modeling right now to identify what improvements are going to be needed to send an additional 1,000 CFS down the Miami and another 200 CFS down the North New River to feed these facilities. And so we've got a report coming out as a result of that surveying and modeling in March. And then, as I mentioned, the reservoir side is being handled by the Corps, and so they've got they'll have the main embankment contract, also a seepage canal, a main inflow pump station. They'll have bridge widening at US 27 and their own section of inflow-outflow canal, where they're going to basically pick up where we leave off and connect the inflow canal over to the North New River. So basically what you wind up with is a full section of inflow canal that can draw from either source, North New River or Miami. And then this is the slide that Commissioner Smith requested quite a while back, and it's got all of the new storage and STA acreage that's underway and helping reduce the harmful estuary discharges. And since the last update, I believe the only number that's changed here is I went ahead and added the Lake Hicpochee Phase 2 storage to it, since that project is now underway. And with that, be happy to take any comments or questions.
Mr. Smith?
No, just thank you for that.
Kurt?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thanks, Alan. And Drew, really tremendous progress. Really appreciate everything you guys are doing without missing a beat, with everything else that's going on. Certainly commendable to all of you and your staff. Just on the ASR, I was just curious how, are we good with, we're pleased to see that going forward. Is the legislature still support? Where are we with support from legislature on moving forward with the program?
So the last 2 years, they've given us $50 million per year, and that's, I don't know how this year is going to look just because of the funding. I can tell you that as far as SERP funding and water quality funding and that's all funded through the Land Acquisition Trust Fund, which is funded by dock stamps, which seem to be doing okay from what I've seen. The ASR technology has been funded by general revenue at the legislature the last 2 years, which is going to be more difficult. But I've seen a lot of legislators be supportive of it, and I think as we see I mean, we know the solution to a lot of the problems down here is storage on all four sides of the lake, and so, I think that's probably going to be the approach. It's like, let's try to get it all done, because the biggest challenge we have is Lake Okeechobee, and whether it's too dry or too wet, and discharges, and getting water to the right place. That's the biggest challenge. So I would see continued support for all of SERP, going forward.
And then I just want to comment again on everything, the coordination with the Corps, with releases, and, moving water to the south as much as possible certainly, has helped with our conditions in the estuary. So appreciate that coordination, the work there.
Absolutely.
There is a move afoot. Simply, you can look at Brevard, for instance. They put a half-cent sales tax for over $40 million to be able to add to their efforts on the lagoon side of things. So I think each of us will be starting to hear from our constituents about how South Florida Water Management District is funded, and that getting back to where the funding sources were in the past, because of anything that we can agree on, right or left, doesn't matter, independent, it's cleaning up our waterways and managing these issues. So be aware that's coming. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you,
And that's a good thing, Mr. Sadowski.
Commissioner Taylor?
Yes, this is we'll get off the subject. Oh, sorry. Yep. Here we go. So just a newbie here. How much of a challenge is it, and I would probably ask the same thing of Florida Fish and Wildlife, of the storage of the muck? Where do you put the muck if it's contaminated? What do you do with it? You don't have to answer specific project, but on a scale of 1 to 10, how much of a challenge is that to you and the projects you undertake? Having the land or having the availability to store that?
This is good.
Thank you.
Yeah, so in a lot of cases, there's places that we can use it. So we can put it in embankments. In some instances, we can use it for cover for the grass to grow on. Obviously, it rains a lot in South Florida, and so as we build embankment, whether it's for STA, FEBs, what have you, that work's got to be protected with vegetation. So in some cases, that muck can be utilized for that. There are certain instances where we can't use it. It can't be, like, for example, within the C43 reservoir embankment, where we've got that soil cutoff wall, we've got that select material. We can't use it there, so we just have to make choices project by project as to what we can do with it. But, typically on all these projects, we have to handle it in some manner.
You have to handle it, but is it a huge impediment, I mean, going forward, or is it just another challenge?
Just another challenge.
Good. Thank you.
Hey, Mr. Shaggy, though, one thing I'd like to add to that, though, and you correct me if I'm wrong, the district was the lead agency whenever the lake got down so low for so many years. The district was the lead agency that actually had heavy equipment on lake bottom and was removing muck, correct? So I just want to clear something up for you, Commissioner Taylor. And I don't know if you were leading into this at all, but one of the big inhibiting factors to that was the arsenic that was in the muck in lake bottom, and the fact that that had to be disposed of in a properly labeled landfill. I'm not saying it correctly, but one that could accept that,
Right.
and with the urethane lining and everything. And that was a huge impediment to that process from a financial standpoint. But that's completely different in reference to what Mr. Shirkey is referencing on their jobs and topsoil and stuff like that. So,
Correct, but, I wondered again if some of the muck removed, I heard the sugarcane fields and whatnot, and how much pesticide was in that and things like that. So it really was a general question. I have a sense that for Florida Fish and Wildlife, it's a different issue.
so.
Thank you.
Commissioner Hazeley?
Yeah. Alan, thank you for your presentation. I have a question for you. The northern residents are coming back to Okeechobee, and you've got a big project going on Nubbin Slough with your pumping station, and you're also doing on the north or east side of 710, the 710/Newcomer STA. and they're concerned that they believe that there's misconception that this water didn't originally go into the lake that you're going to divert and go put through the STAs. So my question to you is, can we do a neighborhood presentation, or either a presentation at our commission meeting, and we'd invite these neighborhood people in to come in so you could see exactly what you're doing to clean the water up before it goes into the lake?
So it would be a presentation on the Nubbin Slough project and the work that's going on there now for repairing it?
Yes, sir. Either we do either neighborhood, I'd be happy to help you find a facility and organize that, or if it'd be better to come to our commission meeting and we publicize it, let the people know. But one of the two, if we could cure some of those misconceptions, it'd be appreciated.
Sure.
Any other questions? All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Sherry. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. We'll now move into Colonel Andrew Kelly with the United States Army Corps of Engineers. Good to see you, Colonel.
Hoorah! Thank you very much. Sorry about that, just running real quick. All kinds of stuff. So I appreciate being up here today. I think, do I get to control? Is that the way this works? I apologize, I wasn't here earlier. So my presentation, I just got a chance to quick peek at what South Florida did. What I'm going to do is kind of go highlight big picture, zoom out a little bit, talk about all the things that are kind of going on, what things we're tackling right now, and hone in on a couple of key areas that we're working. All right. So I can't start anything these days without talking about where we are on Lake Okeechobee. Right now, this is, I don't think it's quite up to date, maybe 2 weeks old, but the bottom line is this just shows a picture of the past few years and kind of what's happening. And what I like to say on this is, you know, we've had some pretty significant differences in water years, which you all know more than me, happens repetitively. There's no such thing as an average year. So what we have really tried to do, especially as we're going into the Lake Okeechobee System Operating Manual in 2022, is we've really taken hold of, you know, kind of the flexibility of our water managers to do the right thing at the right time and make adjustments when necessary for immediate concerns. And so, you know, going back to 2019, you know, we looked at it and decided that we had to do a little bit of a forcing function to change the way we've been managing the past few years before that, because the water was so high. So we made a deliberate attempt to lower the lake that year. And you could see that kind of hump right there. That's when we started pushing to the estuaries at a time where the operations manual, and I'll do it up here, I'm sorry. Oh, it doesn't work there. But right in there, that's a time when the estuaries and the lower schedule doesn't do releases to the east and west, to the Caloosahatchee or the St. Lucie. But we didn't want to end up in a bad place at the end of the dry season, and we wanted the lake to go lower, so we pushed. We ended up having an extremely short wet season. Probably the record shortage of rainfall in September, followed by another record shortage in March. And so we walked in to this past year, you know, lower than anticipated. And so we went into kind of conservation mode. And what I mean by that is we held water in the lake certainly more so than the year prior. And we did so from everywhere. We took water from the C-44 canal up until the last possible second. So even when the schedule suggested that we should close our 308 structure and allow the basin runoff in to the east to go flow through the S80 area into the St. Lucie, we said, no, we think we can hold on. And we really, really thought that we were going to make it announce that we're going to continue that, and I'm going to also say that it's probably one more week. So right now, the weather looks good. We have stemmed some of that rise. Up until 2 weeks ago, we were running about 1.5 foot rise on the lake in a 30-day kind of moving average. We're running about 0.8 right now. So that looks good. If we get another dry week, it looks like we're going to be able to throttle back pretty good, and we're already trying to look forward into what's coming this spring because we're pretty high now. So unlike the past couple of years, we're walking into the dry season significantly high. We got a La Nina on the way, which, if you believe that, looks like it might be a little bit drier than normal. So as soon as I can kind of get out of this day-by-day decision-making process, we will articulate what our long-term strategy is to kind of get back to where it needs to be at the end of the dry season, so we're in good position again next year. So more to follow on that for sure. And now I'll just switch gears and kind of go into broad picture Everglades restoration, right? I think everyone's seen this. This is kind of where we're trying to get to, way historic, what the current system is doing, and what this enormous program is trying to get after. I will burn your eyes with an eye chart right here. We do this publicly. We just announced at the Everglades Task Force the integrated delivery schedule. The only thing I'm trying to highlight here is this year's delivery schedule, or this year's IDS. We put a big focus on trying to relate the plan, the 2000, the yellow book, we call the yellow book, to the current actions and the current projects and the upcoming studies. So we tried to do that direct linkage, and we also tried to put in on the backside of this, not on the screen, but we also tried to demonstrate where the operations manual, where the execution of where these projects, when they get completed, how the execution of moving that water actually occurs. And typically, we finish a project, we have a period where we develop the manual, and then we start execution of the manual. And what we're trying to do in each of these things is get a lot more adaptive management and flexibility in those manuals to handle the one-offs. So it's not a specific issue where on X date 3 years from now we know that this structure is going to close, right? That doesn't work. It guides us in the big picture. The models show us what is happening, but we've got to have a little bit more flexibility in how we operate each of these things once these come online, because we're in that period where we're putting a heck of a lot of infrastructure on the ground. It's phenomenal. The amount of resources we've got, the amount of funding we're getting, the amount of work that South Florida is doing, the amount of work that we're cranking. We doubled our program in this area just in the past couple years, and so we're kind of turning that corner. And what I'll say is, in this period, we're kind of at an interim period. The system is not complete, so there's no real systematic way to make everything work in concert. So we got really, really smart people between us and South Florida Water Management District that are forcibly making connections that aren't being made by the system yet. So we're doing some pretty unique things as we go. But the program is massive. The sequences change a little bit as priorities change, and that's okay. But there's always a little bit of a flash to bang time on how to be able to do that, which is why we update this and work through this very publicly every year as we go through. So I'm just going to do a quick kind of around the lake, using the lake as just a geographic center point, and kind of walk around. The Kissimmee River Restoration Project, what I do with that, especially, we've had a significant leader change in the Corps of Engineers. We got a new chief. The new chief absolutely knows South Florida. He's been down quite often, and he's a fan. But we've got some others. My new boss, the new Civil Works Director. They've been coming down to South Florida to kind of get a look and understand it better. And what we usually do is we go to Kissimmee first. And although it's been a long time coming, we're going to get this thing complete coming in the spring. So it's phenomenal. And what we walk into that with, we typically get on a boat and we say, this is what it looks like when you do it right. and the ecological changes, the impacts, the things that are happening by nature up there is pretty fantastic. Certainly some challenges, and we'll continue to do better, but that's a great example of what can happen if you do it right. The next one, Lake Okeechobee Watershed Project, so storage north of the lake. This is one of those instances where probably recently there's been a shift, kind of an attitude on that, and so there's a lot more communication. We thought we'd get it landed, have our chief's report done, and be ready for WRDA. Right now, it's out for state and agency review, and there's a lot more coordination and communication going on. If we can get this thing done, depending on when Congress works its WRDA cycle, it'll get in, but there's a strong possibility it'll wait till 2022. But no stoppage there on the core. We're continuing to push forward and hope to see a chief's report coming pretty quick. A couple of these, Picayune Strand has been another one of those areas we've been able to kind of get going. The Southern Protection Feature, we got awarded right at the end of the year. That was a hard push for us, but got it done. I think you've already got the brief on the C-43. Here, as all things in restoration, there's a lot of persnickety parts of it, and so we're working with the whole team. We've decided to go back to our agency and say, hey, listen, while Congress is pushing us to get studies done faster and cheaper, we use the term 3x3, which means $3 million in 3 years and get a study knocked out. Sometimes that doesn't fit the need of the stakeholders. And so in this case, we're asking for an additional waiver so we can get additional modeling details, survey details, things like that directly affect the property owners and the tribe on location. So we're going to slow that down a little bit, get a little bit more information prior to the chief's report, but we're committed to getting that in the ground because it's really important, or not getting in the ground, but getting the authorization hopefully by WRDA 2022. Going into south of the lake, we did a great groundbreaking on Central Everglades, absolutely phenomenal, and this is where a lot of the energy and effort is. We're kicking that off, got the new start, and basically allowing the connectivity between what's happening, at the lake area all the way to the south, and so making that deliberate linkage through the system. So we've got a lot of things that we completed in the south. We're getting a lot of stuff done on the lake specifically, and this massive effort is really over quite a period of time is going to create that linkage. And that's kind of what I was alluding to at the beginning. This is an area where we're forcing connections that don't really exist yet, but we got a lot of smart people working that. EAA Reservoir, on time, on target. We are absolutely on a fast track for EAA Reservoir. We're doing design. My engineers, Drew's engineers, I mean, they're sitting every single day making sure that everything we do and everything South Florida does nests and nest well. So we're on track as far as design goes. I know they've gotten after it real hard and gotten ahead of the game on some of their stuff, but that is also looking pretty good. And then Broward County Water Preserve Area, construction beginning in 2022 is where we think for that one. Getting into the Southern Everglades, the combined operations plan, huge significance in our ability to get that started in September. And interestingly enough, I think today, if it's not out already, it'll be out today, but we're asking for an emergency deviation on the plan we just finished in September. And so that's what I was trying to highlight at the very beginning, being able to take 180% additional precipitation and water in the basin and trying to figure out how we can do some once we complete the system, there's a temporary thing we can execute right now to help out 3A. And so the service, us, South Florida Water Management District, and the state, everybody's pulling together to try to get something to do an emergency deviation for that in the next couple weeks. And then here's kind of where we're going. You know, we've got pump stations getting complete. You know, working the Biscayne Bay coastal wetlands. You know, that's on track. And then I put in the last two. You know, we're priming the pump. We're filling the funnel. You know, we're getting the next set of studies down south into the queue. So there's a significant effort on BBC where we're in the scoping phase. We've done quite a bit of public outreach, and we're nailing that one down. But we already know that doesn't cover everything down there. So we're already looking ahead to initiate the planning in 2023 for Southern Everglades. So as the scoping goes for BBC, we're already building in the initial set for how we're going to get to the Southern Everglades portion. And then on the east, the C-44, and I think I got one slide on that next, going to make a huge impact. It is really coming together. And then the Loxahatchee River, signed that chief's report. We're waiting authorization. We think that's got a high chance of getting authorized, and then we can start that one. So on the Indian River Lagoon South, whoops, sorry about that. So on I'm not doing that. Okay. So one more time, and then I'll just talk it. Okay, so a lot of pieces on Indian River Lagoon South. Really took the additional resources we got in this latest budget round, and so that has become a primary effort of us as we go forward on getting all of that done. I am not doing that. And then that C-44 specifically, you know, huge effort learning a ton of lessons. So every time we're building these things, there is absolute connectivity in the lessons we're learning. Soil cement, just as an example, one simple little construction example, the soil cement on this one was challenging. It took us a couple of months and the contractor to get that right, and we're already applying those lessons with South Florida on C-43, the seepage canal systems, how we're sequencing the work, and how we're learning from these activities that have been ongoing is pretty fantastic. So the collaboration is great. And then just a couple of pictures. I have to use this a lot, especially with my friends in DC, to explain. You know, this isn't a small thing. You know, 4 central parks. You know, that's how many Olympic swimming pools, and that's how many football fields. So just giving them a sense of scale at the infrastructure we're putting in the ground time now. Herbert Hoover Dike, fantastic story. You know, with the help of Florida, when Florida, you know, basically gave us $100 million and said, cut it out, go faster. That kick-started us, and we were able to move this completion 3 years earlier. We're currently under budget, and I'll highlight all the green dots, right? All those green dots are things that are done. The yellows are what's under construction, and what we learned from Dorian and what we've learned this year is that we are achieving incremental gains everything we complete that makes the dike safer and allows us more flexibility in our water management. We are absolutely on track by 2022, and that'll pave the way for an operations manual, so we can change the way we manage water on Lake Okeechobee. I'll highlight that next. So LOSM, you know, Lake Okeechobee System Operating Manual. This is really, in effect, changing how we manage water out of Lake Okeechobee. What we've done is we've made these objectives and we put those goals. But what we didn't do is we did not constrain anything on this study, right? The typical methodology is you say, okay, we know we got to hold for this, we got to constrain the system here, we got to constrain it there. We threw all that out the window. What we just finished was 120,000 model runs. I haven't seen it yet. I was told I could get it as soon as I get back to a good connection. But we've got basically a spreadsheet that runs 120,000 different models of how to do this, all of the extremes, right? So let's pretend no one cared about flood control, right? And let's run a model that if no one cared, right? And so you've got an extreme on one end, you've got an extreme on the other end, and you've got everything in between. So that really will set the baseline, and then come January, February timeframe, we're going to get to kind of initial array of schedules. So we're going to weed that 120,000 down to about 9 or 10-ish really plausible ones. We know, the extremes can just get thrown out because the system has to be in balance. The purpose and authorizations for Lake Okeechobee are definitely balanced, and we know some of those authorizations our authorities and purpose for the managing Lake Okeechobee are sometimes at odds. And so we balance the system, and we'll work between now and March to get that set of schedules, and we are doing a phenomenal job in the public. Every time we do what we call a project delivery team meeting, we get about 200 participants. And so we are getting absolutely all of the input we need, and we're working through all the challenges, and we're happy now that we've got that kind of 120,000 model runs. People are going to be able to start using data instead of kind of arguing about, the whole, just at a talking level, conversational level about the needs, and we're going to be able to look into the data, drive that through to March, and we will have a schedule that we tentatively select by July. So we're going to put a stake in the ground in July that says, okay, this is the best one, and then between then and 2022, we'll have plenty of discussion about if that's right or wrong and tweak that as we go. But just want to highlight the fact that there is so much interest and so much communication going on, it's going to be hard to screw this one up.
Thank you, Colonel. Good job. I appreciate, like I said to the district, appreciate everything you guys are doing to coordinate. This year has been fairly good for us on the West Coast without having releases during the wet season. We understand the reason why you're doing them now, and, we are getting the bulk of those, as you well know. But if it had to come at any time, this is probably the best time in the season as we're headed to the dry season. We're not getting a lot of basin runoff, so no algal blooms that we've had. And it's good news to hear that they may be, stopping within a week or so. So hopefully we'll have the lake at a level 2 that entering the dry season that we'll be able to get the environmental releases provided to the West Coast that we need during the dry season. I think you were able to do that last year. But the flexibility you and your operators have shown has certainly benefited our estuary, our region, and we hope you keep that up, and we appreciate the hard work that you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, we're absolutely committed. We're committing to shortening the duration. If I were to prognosticate now, which I will not do at the media call later today, but if I'm looking into my crystal ball, we're looking ahead, and we're trying to figure out, right, as we walk into the dry season, where's the best place to be. And so while we are 100% committed to reducing the estuaries as soon as possible, and I really do think it's going to happen next week, we're probably going to take a step down approach. But, depending on how this week goes, depending on how the dry weather helps us, we'll be looking to put water everywhere that we can while maintaining, a water supply balance come the spring.
Anything else, Gary?
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Doherty?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good to see you, Colonel.
Hey, sir.
Just curious on the Lotham modeling. I assume that you're going to be obviously continuously, even past 2022, you'll be updating your outflow capabilities out of the lake as the facilities get improved. Have you taken and looked at the ultimate scenario, when everything is completed, what we can anticipate as far as where we can take more south and less east and west? Have we any idea what those runs look like?
Yeah, sir. So what I'll tell you is, for this effort, specifically for LOSUM, there is a huge amount but we're using real-time information about what we've seen in the past few years and working that into the model, into those kind of activities. We do have a long-term vision, absolutely. We have a long-term vision about what we think those flows will be at end state a decade from now, but those don't really enter quite yet.
Okay.
So what we've been able to do, and we decided this a year and a half ago, we made the deliberate decision to do this action with kind of two annexes, right? So you'll get a LOSUM, which is the System Operating Manual, immediately in 2022. And then there'll be two annexes with when C-44 comes online and when C-43 comes online. And so those will be immediately plugged in, so we don't have to go through the whole arduous process of doing another manual. We think we'll be able to get those right. We think we'll be able to see the interconnectivity between all of that. But in terms of, when the system is done, for an example, we're not able at this point to do the model runs and do the calculations as if the EAA reservoir is complete. We're trying to find the balance between when we know that South Florida Water Management District is going to have some of their things potentially operational in this time period, but the next LOSUM manual, the LOSUM 2.0 or whatever the heck we decide to call it, my best guess is that 7 to 10 years down the road, but start interacting, we've got a little bit more real-time data, and then we will update the manual once those things are online and the levers we pull actually connect the system. So we're forcibly, in the modeling and in the way we do business, we're looking at how to force the lake to do things rather than having the lake receive the signal, all the way from Florida Bay to the lake. That's not possible without the infrastructure in SEP, so we can't really model it yet. But smart water managers are going to be able to kind of see those connections, and we're going to leverage our flexibility and adaptive management to do that in the LOSUM process.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Colonel, I want to add on to that before we leave it, go to any other questions. If I'm understanding you correctly, and just once again, anecdotally speaking,
yes, sir,
the EAA reservoir is going to be approaching $1 billion. Fair statement?
Multi-billion.
Multi-billion, okay. But we're saying right now we don't have any modeling, or am I being too presumptuous to state that we do have modeling that shows what that will do to relieve the system, if you will?
Yes, sir. So let me be very clear.
Please.
So when we are doing, when we're looking at the EAA and the EAA reservoir, we absolutely have the feasibility level modeling. We know how that's going to work, but what we don't do is we don't add something that's going to be effective 6, 8, 9 years down the road in the plan that we launch on 2022.
Right.
So in the plan in 2022, those are the levers we can pull time now or time in 2022 to actually operate the system. So we know, or we think we know, and so in coordination with that, with a multi-billion-dollar project, you got several $100 million worth of design to go, right? So as those design refinements get made, all of that modeling, all of that information kind of gets updated. And all I'm saying is we do have that, but we don't put that into the system, into the LOSUM manual, because we simply can't pull those levers yet. So we can't make that system work yet, and we'll update the manual as soon as we can. So it's kind of two things. And so in the manual process, we don't show what could happen 7 years, 10 years from now. We show what can happen in 2022, and then we'll go to the next phase of updating that as it comes. Does that help, sir?
It does.
Okay.
Let me ask you this.
Yeah.
So I think you couched it very well. C-44 obviously is, within hours, if you will, of completion. C-43, same thing. We're looking at, I think if you add those up, they're over $1 billion that are added to the system. Those are going to be plug-and-play models that go right into the LOSUM 2022?
Absolutely. Okay. So in those cases, because of where we are in the construction, so we're far enough along on those where we can absolutely, it's baked in the cake in the LOSUM model. And so what we think is going to happen is in 2022, when we produce the schedule, we'll say, here's the schedule. And then in the next year or two, when C-44 comes online, we'll say, here's the new schedule that we told you about, which already has it as soon as we can pull the levers in C-44. So that will be part and parcel of the Lake Okeechobee System Manual. What we don't know is to the same level of fidelity of the EAA, we just can't ghost that into the system at this point. We will, and that will directly cause the next model. So that'll be the significant event that happens that allows us to change the Lake Okeechobee